Our question today is about opposites. And the question is, in order to know love, is it necessary to know hate?
Well, is hate the opposite of love, first of all? Might be. But many have said fear is the opposite of love. And others have said indifference may be the opposite of love. So after all, if you hate someone, there's still passion, you see, there's still attention, there's still a kind of giving, as there may be in love. Indifference, however, retains attention, withdraws, and may be more hurtful than negative engagement. So, first point, what is the opposite of love? Is it actually hate? Is it fear? Is it indifference? Or could it be something else? Then the question comes up, or the thought comes up, what sort of love are we talking about? Because if we're talking about love that has an opposite, then we're most certainly engaged in the plane of arising forms in which you yourself as a separate entity are one of the forms that are arising, you see. And that is a way of looking at things, and it is a seemingly obvious way in which the world appears. It appears as if there are separate things and that they have a kind of relationship, negative or positive, or indifferent or fearful or desirous, attracting, you see, an attractive, aversive perhaps. All these different kinds of relationships. It appears as if we live in a world of lots of separate things until you meditate and you say, well, I see Richard, here's a window, here's a plant, here's shelves, here's a book, here's some objects. I mean, do I ever appear out of a context? And of course, nobody does. And where does context end, you see? I mean, how far would you take it? Why am I not connected even to you, the listener to this video blog? I mean, why wouldn't I be? I'm already connected in context to these things around me. I just have to expand more and more and more, and suddenly things don't seem so very separate. And if things aren't so very separate, neither are they so very opposite. And in fact, hate and love are not so very opposite. In human relationships, time and time again, when we pay attention to people and the kinds of struggles and challenges and tests and trials they go through in their efforts to love, we find these two things are really interrelated. And so a deep love towards somebody can very easily turn into resentment, bitterness, anger and hate. And sometimes, occasionally, it may even turn again. In fact, some relationships may be based on a very quick turning of these two apparent opposites. So that is a kind of love, but it only exists in the plane of so-called reality where arising forms. Things are coming up, things are dying, everything's being born, everything's dying, there's arising and there's dissipation, you see. It's the world of the opposites. And as it says in Buddhism, when the mind of the opposites arises, the Buddha mind is lost. In other words, the Buddha mind, or that part of us of divinity, or the spiritual vision, is that there's more to what we see than this apparent entertainment of arising forms. And it is a kind of entertainment, or it's been called the play of consciousness, for example. It's endlessly fascinating. Even when you go to nature, which is almost obvious in its arising and dissipation, you can be fascinated and you can think this is wonderful, and some people say it's God. It's a romantic idea that's caught on, and even in the 21st century, disillusionment with religions and spirituality, why not retreat into the world of nature because it's fabulous, must be God, makes me feel good, and all these kinds of things. But you see, there is a love that doesn't have an opposite. In fact, anything that has an opposite cannot possibly be the divine. The divine itself is the matrix or the space or the unspeakable reality or the sourceless source or the conditionless condition in which all things arise, dissipate, all things. And when you see it like that, it's a delightful play, but you don't feel attachment to any of these things, because they're merely things, playthings, and you can play with them seriously, and you can play with them lightly, and you can enjoy them while they're there, but don't mistake them for what's real. Don't mistake the relative for the eternal. So there is a case for knowing, understanding, experiencing, and digging into the world of hate in order to understand love. But that love-hate dichotomy is transcended in a love that knows no opposite.